If you're watching this video, it's because you're awesome, and you're about to learn something that makes you even more awesome. In this video, we're going to show you how to replace this, a blower motor, on a Ford van. This is very similar to the Ford F-150 and other pickup trucks. Now this is a 2007 E250 Ford van. Down here is the blower motor that we're going to replace. And you see there's quite a few things in the way. We're going to show you exactly how this is done. But first I wanted to show you, this is a 2011 Crown Victoria. This is the blower motor. We have less things in the way. So as you're watching this on this van, you'll be able to do it on just about any Ford, because it'll either be just as easy as this or easier. We're going to start by disconnecting the battery, of course, which on any other job you'd have to disconnect the battery, but this one will also have to remove it. Okay, loosening the battery terminals. For some reason Ford decided to make one a 10mm and one a 8mm. This one's 10mm, this one's 8mm. One of these days I'm going to be able to work with two hands again, because I'm going to order some of those glasses with the camera in them, and then I can work with two hands. Got to loosen this right here for the battery hold down. Looks like it is also an 8mm, because somebody had put this in dry with no anti-seize on the threads, so it was very difficult at first. Now I've gotten to the point where I'm the last few threads, it's not so difficult. And luckily Ford made this head on this bolt extra long, so it's easier to get to. I didn't have to use a really long extension. But look at all those threads, and look how nasty they are. We're going to put some anti-seize on that before we put it back in. This is what I'm talking about, anti-seize. I put a link in it to the description. I use a lot of it. I've got like 5 bottles of it. And if you want to see the videos get better and me to use one of those pairs of glasses I was talking about, please subscribe and share the videos so that I can justify the expense of those glasses. So there's the actual hold down that bolt goes through. And now we have 4 more bolts here that we have to get loose, because it's going to be very difficult to get these bottom bolts of the blower motor if we don't get this tray out. Just another note, like I always say, is put fender covers on everything. Now these are a 13mm, and if you have air tools, I'd suggest using them on stuff like this. Okay, bolt 1, and just as we feared, is very rusty and hard to get out. So these will also be receiving quite a bit of anti-seize before we go back together. Working on the third one now, and it is fighting all the way. But once we get this one out, we're 3/4 of the way with these. Hopefully we won't have any that are broken off or seized. Woo! All 4 bolts come out. None of them are broken off. Very happy about that. This is the tray. We're gonna dump it upside down. We're gonna clean that out before we put it back in. We're gonna clean off these surfaces before we put it back in. Knock that stuff off of there. Look at how much more access we have now. We can really get to that. So that's almost as much access as, well, right about the same amount of access as we have on the Crown Vic. Of course, the Crown Vic's got this extra piece right here for supporting the wire. You may be wondering about the older Fords, like my older Mach 1, and the answer is no. The blower motor is not as accessible, so it's a totally different procedure, and actually a lot harder on the older Ford. Okay, the actual wire connector, you follow the wire here, it's down here. So we'll be taking that loose, and the release clip, see it? Push up on that while pulling apart, and I'll be doing this with both hands, so I'll be doing it off camera. But I'll be holding it like this and pulling up on that tab, and then pulling on this side with the other hand. Now this right here, it looks kind of like a rubber band around. You're just going to pull that off. It's going to make it easier for you to get this tube loose. See if we get some light on that. See the tube I'm talking about right here? Pull that out. See how the end of it is? That was inside there. Alright, and then you've got a bolt down here that's kind of hidden by the wire. And then these two bolts, one here and one. Where's that? There it is. Right there. I have a habit of leaving the easiest to get to bolt for last. But in this one it doesn't really matter that much because you're not going to fight the weight of the part on the way down because it's usually going to be stuck in here. You're going to have to give it a good yank. And there's not quite enough room here, and we could force it, but you got to remember, if you can't get the old one out without damaging it, without damaging this plastic, you're not going to be able to get the new one in without damaging it either. So we're going to have to make some more room, which means taking these bolts loose and moving this dryer forward. Again, you would not have to do this in Crown Victoria because see, there's no dryer in the way. Now these dryers have some flexible hose here and back here, so you just pull it forward to get your fan motor out, like so, and leave it loose so that you can get your new fan motor in there. We're using anti-seize dielectric grease on the connectors when we go back together. We've got a 15 millimeter, an 8 millimeter, and a 10 millimeter. That's all it takes to do this job. If you've had any problem with your washer fluid reservoir leaking, now would be the time to do something about it because you'll have access to it. And we're going to go back together with this thing. You'll want to do a side-by-side comparison of your new part to the old part to make sure everything is the same, which it is here except for the connector. But don't get alarmed. This connector will work, and there is enough room on the pigtail to reach where it's going to be. This just makes it a little bit tighter. These are actually give you a little bit more room, a little bit more leeway, but this will work. Now most people will have quit watching by now, so I'll give this a little bit of bonus information for y'all who were good enough to keep watching. This right here that comes with it, if you see here, there's none left here. It's still here. But look at what it's done here. See how it's piled up and stopping the electric motor from turning? This may be a contributing factor to why the motor's damaged, and it works sometimes and sometimes doesn't. But yeah, it's got a pretty strong grip on that. Now what happens here is, you see how much it's got this excess gasket material going up underneath the blades there? What you can do to prevent this happening with the new gasket is lay it on top of there, and you can mark it here so that you know just how much material to cut out to keep it from being able to touch the blades once it's down over here. It also makes it easier to slip the gasket over the part. So we're going to add a pair of scissors to our pile of tools. Okay, it's not the most beautiful thing I've ever done, but it does make it possible to just slip that over. So then, of course, we're going to take it back off. We're going to take the paper off the back and we're going to stick it. And we've got this nice thick gasket stuck to the blower motor, and it's on there in such a way it's not obscuring any of the bolt holes. I like to hold it with this flat facing the passenger side so I get more room. In first, and then once I get it in, spin it counterclockwise until I get that dowel pin right there to line up with that hole. Now that puts your connector hole at about the 10 o'clock position. The dowel pin I was lining up with is at about the 1 o'clock position. And we're going to start our first bolt, but we're not going to tighten it. We're just going to get it barely. We're going to start all the other bolts too before we tighten any of them. And these you have to be very gentle with. You do not have to put anti-seize on them, but you do have to be very gentle with them because they are very small bolts with 8mm heads, very small bolts going into plastic. I like to use the very short stubby, and I don't even put my hand on the end of the handle. I just grab it by the head and tighten it about like you would a oil filter. Okay, this can be a pain to put back on. The bottom part is easier, so I like to take it loose, put this in the blower motor first, and then put the bottom back on. Some dielectric grease in the connector. Cram it in there. Now the reason why you put this on first, get this strap around, is because once you've got your connector in there, it's hard to get this. You'll have to take your connector back loose to get this strap up there. Now let's not forget to put the bolts back in the filter dryer. See, it's just loose there. Okay, anti-seize all the bolts. If you have time to do it, run the bolts over a wire wheel, run the threads over a wire wheel, or run them through a media blaster before putting the anti-seize on there. If you do that, put some clear coat or black paint or something on the heads of them, because if you knock the rust and stuff off the heads, then you're going to need to put some kind of paint or clear or black or something to protect them from further rust, or they'll rust even quicker. In my charging testing videos, I couldn't show you this because it's underneath the battery box, but if you see here where it says fusible link, this is one of the reasons why you always want to check for voltage drop between the alternator and the battery connector, because if this fusible link is bad, the charge won't be getting to the battery. Make sure your negative battery cable is tucked over here out of the way before you put your battery tray back in, because you can trap it down here and then you have to take the tray back out. And remember, anytime you have a set of 2 or more bolts, always put all bolts in and several turns by hand before tightening any one of them. And I like to tighten across from each other. I started with this one and then came across diagonally, and then I go to the next one and then I'll go diagonally again. Not that it makes any difference on a battery tray, but it could make a difference on valve bodies, head bolts, stuff like that. So you need to have good habits. Just like the habit compels me to put fender covers on an old work van. That way I don't forget when I'm on something nicer. Welcome to Saneauto. We're so glad you're here. We don't just do repairs and tool reviews.
Bienvenida a Saneauto. Nosotros no solamente hacemos reparaciones de autos.
We also film hot rods and mod rods, project cars, classic cars, antiques.
Nosotros también filmea autos antiguos, mod rods, hot rods, cualquiera.
We also like to take you with us to the car shows and the cruise-ins, so make sure you subscribe and hit that little bell so you don't miss anything.
Me gustaría llevarte con nosotros a los cruise-ins y car shows. Entonces, empuja ese botón y toca de campaña para que no pierda nada.
Thank you for watching our videos. Many of the events, shows, and people that we feature support much needed charities.
Bastante de eventos que nosotros filmea soporta caridad.
Please take a child or a friend to one of these events and make sure that they're aware of all the good works that the great people of the car community do.
Por favor, lleva un niño o un amigo a los eventos para que sepa de buenos trabajos que hacen los coordinadores de evento. Muchas gracias. Hasta luego.